I understood the interface of how to use this welder.
Well, and so we got introduced to Jesse Edelman. Now, Jesse is actually, this is what's really weird.
Oh, he's cool.
He's not a professional welder. He's the account manager for Central California. But man, the guy is good. He teaches well, and he actually pulled a zinger on me.
He did.
I've never welded aluminum before. I've never had the equipment to weld aluminum. So he decided mid-interview that
you're going to weld
aluminum. So he hooks me up with a spool gun and aluminum, and at least I will say I managed to stick two pieces together and they didn't fall apart when touched. Now, it did look like something that drips down your windshield after a flight of pigeons fly over.
I was going to say it looks like your tissue after you blow your nose.
Well, that could be too.
Oh, great. No third grade.
Then he took over and showed us how it was done. And immediately he went into instructor mode. And I realized that my problem was I was moving too fast. Why? Because this welder has something I've never seen before. Now, I'm not going to say it's not in the other welders. A lot of them are smarter, and my welder's probably 5 to 7 years old. But it has a circuit board that can figure out if your arc length is a little too long or a little too short. If your welding material, the aluminum, is stuck out a little too far or a little short. Are you moving too fast? Are you moving too slow? And it will adjust its parameters within what it can do to try and help you weld better.
Yeah, more welding, less grinding.
And so, the old adage of a grinder and paint makes me the welder I ain't. I wish I could claim authorship of that, but no, that's been around a long time. And then he showed me. He said, well, you were moving too fast. He said, that's really the only thing you did wrong. He said, you had the right stick out, you had the right angle, you were using a push, that's all good. But you're in a hurry. Is your welder really? I said, yeah, my welder runs very hot. He goes, that explains it. Because then he went along, and it looked like he was holding the gun the same way I was. But he showed me. He says, I'm just moving slow. And he did half of it in a steady feed. And then the second half he did in the pulse mode, which you have on this welder.
Right.
And it looked like the welding perfection is called a stack of dimes is the term used. And you take a stack of dimes and lay them down how they're all laying on each other at an angle. And at that point, I was too embarrassed to try again because I was like, I knew I was never going to, when you hold up the gold standard to a guy who's just learning how to write, you're not going to.
Well, and the cool thing about him is that he was very animated, very personable, super friendly guy. It was on my hat's off to him. He's like, I don't normally interview. I'm like, could have fooled me, dude.
Could have fooled me.
I literally told what was it, Robert, the other guy, the manager?
That's not Robert. That's another one I'm going to talk about here.
Yeah. But whoever I was speaking to, I said, you need to make that guy. Let's see here. Jesse?
No, Jesse's a guy that we may not have gotten the card from Jesse's supervisor or team lead there.
Yeah, no, but I was talking to him and I said, look, this cat gets it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he kept talking to the camera, talking to the microphone. There was even a few panics when you do see the video where someone started welding behind him going, as an audio guy, I'm freaking out. So cut, next scene, you'll see he's wearing a microphone. I gave him my microphone because the stuff he was saying was that important.
Yeah. So if you're looking for a welder, no, it's not. It's going to be, 4 digits and then some.
Just like buying Jeep parts. Buy once, cry once.
That's it. You need to look at it. Now, I did, Scott, on Friday after you were gone, I was down at the Lincoln Electric, and they have some comparable welders, and I also stopped off at Miller.
Right.
And they have comparable. The key here is not brand specific, but the market has shifted. And now you can buy multi-voltage, multi-polarity, multi-process welders. And if you were to go out and buy a Tombstone stick welder, my MIG, I know what I paid for it, and a TIG unit, and the TIG be dual polarity so that it could weld aluminum. And if your MIG, you bought one that could support gases and spool guns, you would far exceed the cost of the ESAB, the Miller, or the Lincoln. So, no favoritism here, but I will give a shout out to Jesse. ESAB booth was really hospitable. They were willing to talk, and they were willing to explain, and then let an old guy grab new technology and see what happens. It wasn't pretty, but it worked.
It was functional.
It was.
Yeah.
Now, back to the other side. How are we doing on time? Are we going way long?
we're a little long, but we told him at the beginning of the show it's going to be a long show.
All right, well, I'm going to try and wrap this side up a little bit. Shout out to Robert Campos of Strong Hand Tools.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of you are going, what is Strong Hand Tools? Well, I don't know about you guys, but at least on my TJ, there ain't nothing lightweight about that Jeep.
No.
You pull the engine, I'm not going to set it on a regular wooden workbench for the most part.
Right.
And Strong Hand Tools took the idea of a strong workbench. I'm sure everybody's seen somebody who got themselves a plate of steel and made a workbench out of a plate of steel, to be able to work on. But they took it the next step. They actually drill a grid pattern of holes very accurately in these flat plates, which lightens them.
Right.
But then that allows you to drop in all kinds of clamps, braces, things. So you can actually assemble components on the table. The table has a ground lug. It's conductive. It has no finish on the top, so that you can hook your ground up, and as long as the metal part is laying on the table, you have ground, so you don't have to worry about that. Now, you may have to clean paint off the part, so you can weld on it, you can clamp on it, you can fabricate on it accurately, and that in itself is critical. I've read about them. I've seen them on some other YouTube videos.
Aren't they nitrate covered too? Or
I don't know about that, but I think he said something so welding splatter didn't stick.
Yeah, that was my question.
And we were talking about, well, if it gets in the holes, and he says you just run a dowel or a bolt through it, and it pops it off. I tend to watch welding tips and tricks .com,
right.
Which is a welding video by a very notable welder, and Jody. Now he first reviewed them when they came out,
right?
And now every video you see, it's pretty much all you see in the videos are strong hand tables. I wish I had his budget, because he's got a lot of them, but the point is he makes everything look easy, because he just takes it and sets it on this table, takes a clamp that drops into the hole and tightens the clamp down, and everything's grounded, everything's accurate, it's tight, it doesn't move and warp when you weld. So shout out to Strong Hand Tools. It's a neat product. So if you're looking to outfit your garage, you may want to look, because they do have smaller tables that work for home garages.
Yeah,
on wheels.
We brushed on this a little bit to kind of go back a touch back, for lack of better terms. As far as the Gladiator thing goes, Dory and I have been talking, and they are really neat. The Gladiators again are growing on me again, and one of the things we talked about, we touched on it briefly, is about all the new vehicles being Gladiators. My whole thing, you know what? We'll touch back on this in a second, because I was basically going to go on with Naomi.
Yep.
While we were in the Mopar booth with Naomi, we were talking about.
I was going to end with the Naomi and the Dodge booth, but that's fine.
Well, no. You know what? Hold on.
Well, that's fine.
No, we'll end that way.
Yeah, but it'll still be in the video. So while Scott's recording the stop point,
we'll be right back with that one, guys.
Yeah. Also, I wanted to give a shout out to Jason. Your business card.
Well, the last name's not so important. Where is he from?
Anagnostis. He is the president and chief technical officer of Pour Products. Now tell me,
that is a
who
common
hasn't
question.
Heard of Pour 15?
Okay,
if you have rust on a Jeep, and who doesn't, you either have heard of or need to hear of Pour 15. It is a chemically reactive material that you can paint on firmly a fixed rust, not the loose flaky crap. And it will convert that rust to a solid substrate ready to be painted. And it turns out that he was there chatting, and they had one of the CJs that you didn't see. Okay. And sitting next to that CJ was a CJ frame.
Right.
And we were talking about, because a Jeep, I was doing the squirrel thing, and that's not a JT.
Yes.
And lo and behold, he comes over, he says, we're here, our products, and they have a lot more than Pour 15. That's what I want to touch on. They have rust prevention, primers, top coats, coatings, kits, painting accessories, even concrete floor coatings for garages.
Hey, concrete. Yay.
But they were talking about the fact that the Jeep in question that was at the show was a rusted wreck. And they cleaned it, and then Pour 15'd it, and then reassembled it, and it actually looked dang good. So it was a neat proof of concept for the Pour 15 material. Yes, it is expensive, but you get what you pay for.
Well, again, we do talk about it several times. Pay once, cry once. You know.
So now let's get on to the wrap up for this part of the show, which is the Mopar booth.
Well, real quick on the Mopar booth is I want to give a few second shout out to Naomi. She you have your business card here, don't you, Kevin?
It's here somewhere. You keep talking. I'll see if I can find it.
Basically,
Put it down somewhere.
we all talked about the biggest question. Kevin was actually talking with one of the. We got confused earlier. The Dana person from Dana was in the Mopar booth, and basically Kevin talked a little bit about how he went to. They're asking, "Oh, you're hitting that cord, dude."
Go ahead, pick up again. I thought I gave it to you.
No, we I can't remember if you did it or not.
Yeah, it's right there.
Huh.
It's one here, folks. For those on video, it's the one with the Mopar on the back.
I got my contacts in, dude. I can't see anything.
Okay.
So, guys, we want to take a quick shout out when we were going to wrap this show up. Naomi Thomas. One of the really cool things about the Mopar booth is that they had. Again, the JT.
Yeah.
You know, the J6.
Well, if you're going to say it's new, and then in their concept, they had the J6, which is a two-door JT.
Yeah. And of course, we all asked the same question. I said, "Let me guess. Haven't heard this one before?" And she goes, "Yes. Are we going to make this?" And I said, "Yeah." And she was a sport about it. Here's I'm going to jump right into and just rip off this Band-Aid. Jeep has no plans on making the JT.
Ow!
And that hurt. I know. And I know everyone says, "But I want that Jeep. I want this Jeep." And again, I kind of touched on a little bit of a post, and you know. Jeep is in business to sell vehicles.
They are.
And if you're going to sit there and bash a new Gladiator, that shows there's no market for it.
Yeah.
If you're going to
much
say,
less a two-door.
If they're going to say, "Oh, the four-door Jeep is an abomination," they see that.
They
do. And one thing that everyone has to understand is Jeep is in business to sell Jeeps.
Yep.
It's cool that you have a 20-year-old TJ, but that doesn't put food on the plate to the people at Chrysler.
Correct.
And the cool thing that they let us know, and this is a little bit of the cat's out of the bag, two-door Wrangler sales are minuscule compared to four-door.
They're less than 1/10, I think, of the four-door Wrangler sales. Yeah. And because of that, right now, they have no demographics on a Jeep pickup. I mean, let's face it, the last Jeep pickup was in the 70s.
Yeah.
So they're relating the Wrangler sale ratio to the the JT ratio.
JT ratio.
And right now, it's not feasible for them to go through product development because it would be a different frame. You know, there would be a different suspension. A whole bunch of things would be different. They were actually very open with the details.
Yeah, the different tow rating. When people think truck, they think, I want it to tow a lot of weight.
Right. So the J6 that was out there was actually, they admitted to me that it was built as a concept vehicle on a two-door Wrangler chassis.
Yeah.
Which means it's really a two-door chassis.
Oh, one of my cameras just getting ready to die.
Okay. Well, we're going to pause to change a battery.
Yeah, we'll be. I'll be able to edit this.
Yeah, but okay.
I'm just going to leave this one going.
Okay.
See how this one.
So patrons, you get to see that this one's what happens when the battery runs out. When we talk too long, it's a natural limit to our kibitzing.
Both of my batteries are dead too.
Okay, well I've got.
No, I got replacements there.
Oh, okay, you got your replacements.
Yeah. That way, if you want to use mine or whatever you want.
Well, it leaves me one for me. Why can't I get your? There it comes.
Oh, you're dead too. So we're breaking this up into a two-part show. So now on to, I guess, flipping the cassette to part 2.
Hi, Patreon. Sorry. This is a really long show. We're going to do it in 2 parts. Or are you not recording?
I hit record before I turn your microphone on. Now your microphone's on.
Hey, Patreons. Just letting you know, sorry for the delay, but we had batteries die, as you may or may not. I don't know if we caught the fact that it died.
Well, the good
we're
news
going to break it into 2-part show, both released for this segment, but you don't have to download a massive show. You can listen.
we're gonna adjust something here real quick.
Well, actually, I just realized there. Does that help?
That helps much better. Okay. So basically, real quickly, if you notice, we haven't had to jump up, and I'm not checking cameras every 5 minutes. Thanks to you guys, we got another GoPro marketplace used.
Yeah.
But so now we have 3 GoPros going, so I don't have to sit there and stress over it. Now I have blinking red lights. Life is good.
Life is good.
Okay. So, anyways, we're going to pick up right at the beginning of the Mopar booth.
Yep.
All right.
So.
Hey, I do want to spend a few seconds out to give
Naomi Thomas, Program Manager, Accessories Product Development, Mopar brand of Fiat Chrysler Automobiles.
Yes.
Of course, it's pretty easy to see. It's kind of got the logo on the back.
Yeah. And it was interesting because, again, they had the J6 concept truck out there.
Yep.
And, again, everyone kept saying, hey, well, why aren't you going to build the two-door Jeep truck, yada, yada, yada. Well, Here, we're going to rip off a quick little Band-Aid, and that quick little Band-Aid is this. Jeep doesn't
have any plans.
Doesn't have any plans to make the two-door Jeep truck, and I know that's a big ow.
Yep.
1, 2. Instead of doing it 3, it's 1, 2, and rip it off, and you don't get a chance to tense up. But anyways, the reason being is because again, it's great that you have a 20-year-old TJ, and you say the Jeep Gladiator is too expensive, blah blah blah, and real Jeeps have 2 doors. They look at all that, and add that to the fact that 1/10 of the new Wrangler sales is 4 doors.
Yep. And right now, what Naomi told us point blank was that Jeep hasn't made a pickup for years.
Yeah.
And when they're looking at models and projected sales, really what they're using right now is the Wrangler to predict the Gladiator.
Yes.
And since such a small percentage of the Wrangler sales are 2 doors now, because the world is going 4-door.
Yeah, but
they're happy with bigger. They're happier with more room, more luxury, more options.
Everything. Well, again,
the price point just isn't there for them to spend the money for development of the JT 2-door.
Yeah, you were talking about the engineer from Dana or something like that, where the truck was basically off the 2-door platform or something.
Correct.
Like that?
Well, it was actually the Mopar engineer who told me that the truck that you see, the blue truck in our videos, that really is cool. I mean, it's a gorgeous truck, but the mock-up was built on a Wrangler platform, and the Wrangler 2-door platform. Now, while that looks cool, that's not a truck platform. So if you buy a JT, you expect a tow. Do I need to?
It's raining and hissing noise.
Oh, then I grabbed the wrong one. There's the other one sitting right here.
Let's just swap it out.
Yeah. You power down. Sorry, patrons, another short break.
Yeah.
Or we start over again with the whole Mopar thing.
This cable's probably just going to go into the trash because I bought a whole box of them for $12.
A whole what?
A whole box of them for $12.
Oh, that's cool. I just unhooked, so let me reconnect before you power back. Okay, power up and see if we have any crackles.
Oh, much better. No, I can hear it right now.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So,
I want to redo that Naomi thing over anyway. So
that what?
That whole Naomi thing over.
Okay. Last time.
Yep. Okay. So patrons, you may or may not see the stuff we did before there because the audio was a mess. So anyhow, back to. Hey, speaking of the Jeep show, I do want to give a special thanks to Naomi Thomas. She took a few minutes out to when we stopped by the Mopar booth.
Right. And let's be honest, Naomi is a program manager for accessories and product development Mopar brand of Fiat Chrysler Automobiles.
Yeah, and product development.
Yep.
Going to take a quick little byline, and I'll be as fast as I can because there's a lot of little jewels to this little subject. Basically, I lost my train of thought. I'll get it back. But here's what we got. It's really cool that we all have a 20-year-old TJ, and everyone says that the TJ should have died a hero's death. None of this 4-door junk, and blah blah blah. V6 motors, blasphemy, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, minivan motors. I've heard enough of that.
You've heard enough of that. So, anyways, real Jeeps have 2 doors. Blah blah blah. Here's the deal. Jeep is in money to sell Jeeps, not shake your hand because you have a 20-year-old TJ.
Yeah.
I love my LJ. Don't get me wrong. But everyday driving, the JK is nice. You know, things progress. Emissions changes.
Let's face it, sales shows that. We may talk two-door, but we buy four-door.
Exactly. And thank you for putting that in a much more succinct way than I was going to go.
And Naomi made it very clear to us that Jeep hasn't made a truck in, well, since the 70s.
And ripping off this Band-Aid.
Okay. And so they don't really have current market data on what we might like as a truck.
Yeah.
Now, what they do have is lots of good sales data between the two-door and four-door Wranglers.
It's like almost like 1/10% or something.
It's some very small number for the two-doors. In fact, there are a lot of Jeep dealerships that aren't really, they may have one two-door for the entire lot full of
it's
four-doors.
It's a Sport shoved in the back that no one wants to buy.
Right. So looking at that, they don't see the demand for the J6, is what they're calling the prototype right now, or the two-door JT, and to be worth the cost of preparation. The mock-up that we saw, and yes, it's a driving, but I'm still going to call it a mock-up because it was for looks, and it was actually built on a two-door Wrangler chassis. That is not a pickup truck chassis. Let's face it, if somebody buys a JT, they're going to want to throw a tow, a hitch on the back, and they're going to load the bed full of camping gear, and they're going to want to tow a pop-up off-road trailer, or they're going to
hit the highway.
They're going to hit the high. And if you look at the specs, the tow specs on the JL two-door, it's
1,500 pounds,
1,500
2,000, if that.
Plus, there's all different geometries. In fact, most trucks, if you actually look at some heavy-duty trucks, they made the attempt at coil spring rear suspension through the late 60s and early 70s, and they realized that wasn't stable. When you load up coils excessively, they tend to get a little squirrely.
But wait, the new Ram has a coil spring, and the Ram can only tow 7,000 pounds.
Right, so they're working on it. Now, I'm not saying that they might not solve the coil spring with how the arms are configured for the control arms and that kind of thing.
When I say Ram, I mean 1,500. You know, obviously, you know, people are going to say, well, you got
Still, the heavy-duty towing world is still running leaves in the rear. Even my Ford has leaves in the rear, and that has to do with the geometry of the suspension and the weight. And I'm not trying to say that it has to be leaf, but, you know, you look at the big boys.
Go with what works.
Go with what works. So, the long story short on that is that a two-door JT would have to have a completely new chassis design.
Yes.
And that's really what's driving it. Everybody looks at the body and goes, oh, well, it'll be real easy.
Yeah, you just put it in production. You already did.
You already designed it. Well,
production is one thing, one-off is another. Then you got to crash test it.
Yeah.
Then you got to basically do testing on everything. They already did that with the four-door, and everyone's going to say, well, you did it with the four-door. Well,
but it doesn't work that way.
Again,
the traffic safety does not allow you to... There's a limit to how much of a modification in the model that was approved can be modified, you know, to make a new model.
Exactly.
And believe me, taking a four-door cab down to a two-door cab is more than what would be acceptable. So they'd have to go through the entire certification process again.
I get, like you talked about. But again, a little sidetrack on that. So everyone keeps saying, oh, well, you know, just make it base model. Just don't give it all those creature comforts. Again, you're not the target audience.
Unfortunately, you're not.
They want four doors.
Yeah.
They want towing capacity, payload capacity. And that's what, and again, if you really want that JT, go buy that Sport two-door that you know the dealership's not going to sell, make a deal, and then go home and learn how to cut and buy an ESOB welder and make it, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and that was one of the things when we talked with them a little bit, and I said, so just in kind of tongue-in-cheek, what would it take, you know, to get your market share to the point where you felt it was worth it? And she says, I don't know if you could. I said, well, what if we got every listener out there that was wanting to build one or buy one or have one to start sending in emails and letters and contacting Chrysler? And she said, yeah, if we got enough of those, we might consider it. But thing is social media doesn't cut it.
Yeah.
That doesn't convince them that you want to buy. Okay. Right. So you can go ask for it. You can go email them and say, hey, look, I would buy one, if they were made. Again, it would take more than everybody on our show. It'd take everybody on every podcast show that I can think of. Easy to get them to see the economic benefit. So there is the thing. Chrysler needs to see the economic benefit. They don't build things for nostalgia. They build them to make money. Scott said that quite a few times, even a few that got deleted in bad scenes.
Well, real quickly, you want to know how you can help? Simple. If your neighbor wants to buy a Gladiator, absolutely do it. You want to buy a 4-door JL or 2-door JL, buy it. Yep. Be supportive to the new people coming in, because again, they have a different mindset than you. If they spend money, it gives more money to R&D. It gives more money. It builds the brand. These people may realize, like I did. I had a YJ, bought a JK, and said, you know what? TJ's a sweet spot for me. I went backwards in technology. Our friend Dave Meyer to the show, he's got a 65 or 67 wagon.
Right.
He went backwards in technology. So if you embrace those new people with the 4-doors, the JLs, the new technology, bring them in the fold, bring them in the family, and get them excited about old iron, old technology, that'll bring up the nostalgia. That'll bring up the sales numbers. That'll bring up the market share to where
which is how the JT came to light.
Exactly.
So, yeah, there is always that cinder of hope floating out there that enough people. Now, if you just absolutely gotta have a J6.
I just thought of something, but go ahead.
You can buy a JT 4-door, call up one of your custom fab shops and say, shorten this sucker for me.
Even better.
What's that?
Get yourself a wrecked 4-door Gladiator in the front, buy the bed off of it, get a 2-door JL. You got a bed. The biggest problem about buying and making a Jeep truck was the bed. Well, we now have an access to a Jeep bed.
Well, yes, but you also have to close in the back of the cab. Well, and that's different. It doesn't have the wheel cut.
Good point.
Okay. So that's why I'm saying you either you need to fabricate it yourself, or you need to find someone who's got the skill to fabricate it. And after seeing a cab and a half and the J6, there are people out there that can do that. Think how unique that would be.
Didn't Brandon? Oh no, it wasn't Brandon. Who was the gentleman at
Anthony Carvalho?
He built that in what, 3 months, 3 weeks?
3 weeks.
Yeah, 3 weeks.
That custom. Now he had a shop working with him.
Yeah,
but he did a lot of the work himself. And laughing, we didn't say it before, but he also told us that he stressed over the colors.
Well, and one of the cool things is we've all seen the horror stories of SEMA builds for all the trucks and all that. Kevin and I poked our head around his truck. That thing had no problem doing what it had to do. That thing was built and come correct.
Yeah, and it's been driven, and it had the witness marks to show that it had been driven hard.
Oh, yeah, there's a reason why he did his Ackerman angles, because he wanted to make sure it handled when he applied the skinny pedal.
I joke, a lot of the. You could tell the Trailer Queen Princess vehicles because the tires still had their molding nubs on them.
Yeah, this did not.
No, this didn't have any. This still, you peered up in those funny little places, and you all, if you clean your Jeeps, know where I'm talking about. Around the bumpers and the rear fender and the little returns in the bodywork that get packed with dirt and mud, and unless you specifically go up hunting for cleaning those spaces, it's there even if you polish the outside to a glowing shine.
Yeah.
His had mud up there.
Yeah. Not just mud, a little bit of burnt rubber too.
Yeah, it did.
The Hellcat motor.
Hellcat's pretty awesome.
And those were not small tires too.
No. So I guess what we'll do is, in wrapping up the long segment of the show here for this part, is say that we're not done with the SEMA. We're not done with the SEMA information. We've made lots of really cool contacts that are going to give us more information, more in depth. So we'll be bringing you further shows. Just don't ask me to walk anywhere for a while.
Yeah. When you spin the green ring on your iWatch so many times it turns plaid, that's when you know you've...
So we're going to go over and do a very short garage segment because there was a SEMA relationship to the garage segment, kind of a throwback to a show that we did just not too long ago. Yeah. So, Scott, dig out that pirated remote that you've been hiding all these years, open the door, and let's get on with it.
I have no idea what you're talking about. Click. No. Hey guys, we didn't plan this. Wait, hold on. I got to do it. Look at my camera. Hey guys, we didn't plan this. No, so we're tired. We're still catching up, man. Jet lag.
Well, you got to remember this. We're recording this on Tuesday night. I didn't get home till Sunday morning at 1 a.m.
And between me and you, the Patreons, I finally sold my house. So I had to move again in a way. We'll get to that later. But anyways, hey, Kevin, I got that garage door up for you now. But you know what? I hid that remote somewhere in your office. Well, you're not going to find it. Ha ha.
Sure. I'll just get out my little radar device and, find the... Yeah. Hey guys, quick garage segment. 2 parts to it, but the first part's SEMA related. Several shows ago, I talked about the dead battery in my TJ, and we also did the little Easter egg video afterwards for the Patreons that showed me replacing the failed multifunction switch that shorted out, killing the battery.
Yes.
All right. And one of the things I talked to you is about was the chargers, and the fact that I learned the hard way, if your battery was below 6 volts and you have an auto selecting charger like I do, it thinks your battery's a 6-volt battery.
Hey, it's 6 volts. I'm going to top it off. There you go. You're good to go.
There you go. You're good to go. So my battery was down to only 5 volts. Actually, it was probably 4.8. And
ding, done.
It said, yeah, I'm done. And I'm looking, and I go, what's the voltage? And it was saying the charger was putting 7.2 in, and it got up to 6 and kept quitting. 6. And I'm going, okay. And I talked about jumping in another good battery to boost it back up to the level that the charger would recover. Well, I started asking around, and I started asking at the different booths, and most of them use that starting voltage technology because, well, if you run your battery down below, 12-volt battery down to 6 volts,
it's dead.
It's dead. You may not be able to recover it. Well, I found a company, well known, but they answered it differently. In fact, the young lady I started talking with went out and grabbed a sales gentleman who was from the parent company, the home office, which is, I'm not sure where he is, somewhere over in the European continent for where the company comes from. And that company...
Pause for dramatic effect.
Is CTEK, okay? And that's because I'm showing the...
Now, is it SEATEK?
No, it is CTEK, and I believe...
The letter C.
The letter C. I think it comes from trying to find a way to say SEA, like, and nautical, without saying C, because while they do boat chargers, and they kind of did that a lot in the beginning, they also make chargers for everything else.
Lawnmowers.
And their charging system, they have something called Battery Sense. And they can handle batteries discharged to as low as 2 volts.
Wow.
And it will run a process of desulfation and analyzing the battery. And then they charge up to a 6-volt level. But then if they need to, it'll push it and it'll check. And if it... Normally, when you peak out a battery, because the cells should charge to a nominal 1.5 per cell, it's a little more than that, and then the resistance goes up radically, and they don't take any more charge. It actually starts boiling electrolyte.
Yeah.
Well, if you charge a 12-volt battery, to 6 volts, and then push it a little bit, the resistance doesn't change.
Right.
And it doesn't start heating. Not that it monitors heat, but it can figure out that, this isn't a 6-volt battery. This is a 12, and it will recover the 12. It's the only one I talked to, and I'm not saying there aren't others, but of the ones that I was able to talk to at SEMA, the CTEK battery charger can handle deeply discharged batteries. So if you're like me, and your battery is somewhat buried in your Jeep and not real easy to get to due to a battery relocation kit, and if you're winching a lot and you pull the battery down and you want to have a maintenance charger, I'm impressed. I'm going to be probably purchasing a CTEK charger, and I will let you know what I learn.
Sweet. That's also cool. Sorry, I'm smirking because the things I want to say, it's a family show and I'm not allowed.
Oh, yeah, you can't.
No. So the interesting thing about the idea of the charger, because we talked about me, now does obviously the CTEK will handle AGM, dry cell, it'll handle everything, right?
It handles them all, and it figures it out itself.
Sweet.
It analyzes. They've come up with algorithms to program a microcomputer that an AGM reacts this way when discharged. A wet cell reacts this way. Now, a lot of manufacturers have these kind of algorithms,
right?
But they're the first ones that I've talked to that have taken it down to the deeply discharged levels.
Okay.
And folks, I'm not saying it's a cure-all. It's not going to necessarily fix a dead battery that's been sitting in your garage for the last 6 months.
Right.
But if you get to a battery that you've run flat within a short amount of time, and no, I don't know exactly what that time limit is, but it's just deeply discharged, and the sulfate crystals have only started to grow on the plates. All right. If you can reverse the process and essentially electrochemically shake off or redigest the sulfate, you can recover that battery, is the way they explained it to me. If it sits too long to where the sulfate crystals actually go plate to plate, too late. You're not going to come back because you try and charge and it's got a short. Okay.
Yeah.
Nor is it going to fix ones that vibration have caused the plate to break and fall.
Right.
That's all there is to it. But it is a viable process. I'll be interested to test it, and as always, I'll let you know what I find out.
Sweet. Now, that was part 1 or part 2 to the
that was part 1 to the garage segment. The other one is a personal one, Scott, and I hope everybody doesn't mind this. But we've had a long discussion, and many of you listeners have contacted us, and I know I talk about my career with the Army Corps of Engineers.
Yeah, and this is actually topical because it just recently was Veterans Day.
It was just Veterans Day. I want to make it very clear. This actually came as a suggestion from another podcaster who was checking out our show, and he really thought, it's cool. You need to talk to your listeners about this kind of stuff. But I want to make it clear. I'm not a soldier. I've never been a soldier. Okay. I was an Army civilian. The honor of Veterans Day goes to those who swore an oath to not only support and defend the Constitution, but that they will obey the orders of the President of the United States and the orders of officers appointed over them.
Right.
My oath, I did swear an oath, folks, and it was the same, to support and defend the Constitution. But it changes a little bit, and it says that I take this obligation freely without mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office that I'm about to enter. And the difference there, folks, is, yes, I will tell you, I was deployed and embedded into various military groups, but I was not issued a weapon. I was always under the care of the soldier.
Right.
My role in the Army was to support the soldier, to provide him the facilities, the Air Force's landing strips, Marines, and their training centers in Iraq to do the reconstructive efforts for them so that they can do their mission, which is to protect myself, my family, my friends, and my country from aggressors. And if necessary, take that aggression back to them. Okay. Right. I will never, I appreciate the wishes and the thank you for your service. But I want to be honest with everybody here. The honor goes to the soldier, the person that walked point, the person that charges in and not away from combatants. Okay. Mm-hmm. While I was honored to support them, I am not one. So just keep that in mind. All right. Okay. I am an engineer. I have been trained. I've supported the Army my entire career. Army of one, you pick the thing. But in my world, as an Army engineer, I don't want to call it battle cry because it's not, but our motto is Essayons, which is let us try. I was always one step back from the soldier. Okay. They are the ones who deserve the honor. They are the one who deserve the thanks.
Just had a quick question.
Yes, sir.
Again, playing the part of every man here.
Yes.
And woman.
Please do.
So when you talk about, even those who were supporting staff, flew in the airplanes, weren't in direct combat, stayed home and did...
They are still soldiers because if ordered, they would take battle forward.
And that's the difference between the difference that they took.
I had the choice to say no.
Okay.
That is probably the biggest, aside from the fact that I wasn't armed, difference is they didn't have a choice. They had, when they took their oath of enlistment, their oath includes obeying the order of the president and their superiors.
So that includes file clerks, doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Every soldier, whether you're talking about Army, Air Force, Marines, Navy, even the Coast Guards, are trained to bear arms and take battle forward if necessary. Okay, even the cook and the guy peeling potatoes, to use the euphemism,
He could take up arms.
he can take up arms and take the battle forward.
Okay.
I was never or she.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter. That was not my role. My role was to make sure they had the arms, that they had the equipment, that they had the training facilities to learn how to use those equipments, to make sure that the command centers existed where their superiors could get a hold of them and monitor, and a lot of things I can't talk about. Okay.
Right.
But that there's a difference there.
Well, just out of curiosity, because when people hear the engineer, when I first met you, I thought the same thing. What's the difference between a combat engineer and what you did? Because it kind of almost blends this way. And if you think about it,
and we actually work together. All right, because let's face it, to take something apart, you need to know how it's put together.
Right.
So, in our world, in the Army Corps of Engineers, there's actually 3 sides to it. Most people are not aware of that. And there is the combat engineer. Many people call them sappers. That's just a colloquial term. That's a side of it. The guys that go blow up stuff
Right.
are called sappers. There is the well-known side of the Corps of Engineers that do dams, river dredging, maintain the Mississippi,
Heavy
beach
equipment kind of
nourishment, and that stuff. And there's a smaller group of us that are there as support to the military. I have roles, stateside, I had roles. I was in charge of the programs to build, construct all kinds of things at various military bases, make sure that things were operating properly. The civilian engineer also fills a key role to provide continuity. Soldiers traditionally rotate every 2 to 3 years. It's part of the mentality to keep them fresh. You don't want them getting stagnant, and they need to be combat ready and combat aware. And those rotations almost always include some sort of a combat active role for all of them in one of those roles as they move along.
Okay.
It keeps them sharp, keeps them well trained, keeps them ready to protect us. But on the other hand, engineering is one of those things that when you go and want to build a runway, you might get it done in one engineer's time, but the design, then the construction and commissioning phases usually are longer than a military officer can hang in one spot.
Right.
So civilian engineers do that role. We do the continuity role is one of our key features on the MILCON side, and that's the short for military construction side. We also are the ones who, when flat out you run out of combat engineers because they're rotating or they've done their theater duty too long. The Iraq issues in Operation Iraqi Freedom, it ran to the point that we were running out of combat engineers. So they started saying, okay, the combat engineers that we have there are going to be focused on the combat side. And they mobilized a bunch of us because we are deployable, and we took forward and actually went to the forward operating bases. I spent time in Fallujah, I spent time in Baghdad, traveled all over the place, and took part in planning as well as construction, reconstruction, the Hearts and Minds is what they called it, where you met with sheikhs and amans to decide who got what as far as thank you for not shooting at our troops.
Right.
While the combat guys went out and did the dirty work. And it's a tougher time because I met a lot of young men who didn't come to dinner that night, unfortunately, because of what went on. But I was human cargo to those people. They took me out, they took care of me, they made sure I made my meetings, and then they brought me back. But other than that, I did not play a combative role unless then a few times we got into some situations where few commands were issued to get me the you-know-what out of there.
Right.
So the honor, the glory, and the thanks go to those who walk point, that carry a weapon or can carry a weapon, that defend our freedoms. And I just want to make sure I do not request nor feel I deserve that honor. That is theirs and theirs alone.
Yeah. All right.
So let me get off the little stool, the social commentary stool.
Well, you did follow up with, I guess you had your own sayings.
Yeah, other than the civilian oath of office and what Scott's pointing to, and let me see if I can get it here, was in the engineers, we do, particularly the combat side, have a secondary oath that we do swear. It's voluntary. You don't have to, but most of us do. Mm-hmm. And I'll read it to you. As a professional engineer, I dedicate my professional knowledge and skill to the advancement and betterment of human welfare. I pledge to give the utmost of performance, to participate in none but honest enterprise, to live and work according to the laws of man and the highest standards of professional conduct, to place service before profit, honor and standing of the profession before personal advantage, and the public's welfare above all other considerations. In humility and with need for divine guidance, I make this pledge. I still hold to that pledge today, even though I've been retired for 5 years, because, and I'll go back to a conversation that I had with two of my friends, and one is an airline pilot, retired, and the other is a doctor, still practicing.
Yeah. And
we had a discussion over, risk in life and that kind of things. And some of you may not know all the references I use, but you can Google them. A doctor makes a mistake. Potentially, how many people die?
One.
Pretty much one.
Yeah.
Some cases you may get a couple more if it's something, viral, but one. An airline pilot makes a mistake. How many people can potentially die there?
Depends on the size of the plane.
Yeah, but it's the few hundred in the aircraft. An engineer makes a mistake. How many people die?
Hundreds, thousands.
Bhopal,
millions.
India was a classic example. One engineer made a mistake at the Dow Chemical Factory, I believe it was, and gassed an entire town. Yeah. Okay, and was he guilty of homicide? Well, they found him so, but was it intentional? No. But engineers are charged with not making those mistakes. So to that end, I find the oath a reminder to me. Second best isn't good enough. Right. I'm going to give the best answer I can give. I'm going to do the best work that I can do. I'm human. I make mistakes. I'll be the first one to admit it. But that kind of is what drives Kevin. The focus of this isn't on Kevin. It's on the fact that Veterans Day is for those who wore the uniform. They honored me, allowed me to share the uniform for a short while and wear the flag on my shoulder. But that was an honor and a temporary situation.
Right.
But the true honor goes to our fighting men and women who protect us every day and our freedoms.
Yeah.
And with that, thank you much. Sorry for a weird little ending to a long diatribe on SEMA, but I felt I needed to bring that up.
No, and that's good. And it personalized people. It lets a window into Kevin. Maybe one day we'll do a window into Scott. Unfortunately, that probably will have to be a Patreon exclusive and non-PG. But see the previous videos about my Garfield licking the window on our outro video. So again,
there's nothing wrong with that.
Nope, not at all.
Nothing wrong with that.
But again, we have gone a little long.
Well, this will be a 2-part show. Yeah. So if you're listening to this, you figured out how to flip to the B side.
Yeah, cassette. Just if you don't know what a cassette is, ask your mom or dad, or your aunt or uncle, whatever. We do want to take a quick little sidebar again to say thank you very much to everyone. All of our listeners.
Yes.
Our Patreons, they're very near and dear to us. And again, we talked about this.
But all of our listeners count, because without the listenership, we would have not been invited to come out and see SEMA. Mm-hmm. We would not be sitting here talking to you right now.
No.
So, no, we wouldn't be a show without each and every one of you.
Yeah, and a very big, extremely special thanks goes to Juan.
Yeah.
Him and his staff were the ones that vet us, and out of quite a few entries, not everyone made it.
Nope.
And because of you, our listeners, our downloads your social media interaction, your reviews on iTunes, Spotify. You know, Kevin and I, when we recently signed up for a thing, knowing where we stand in the podcast world, like, you know, where our ranking is. And I'll tell you, when Kevin and I got it, we were floored.
Yeah.
You guys, again, thank you.
Yeah.
Everything you do.
You guys drove us into the top 200 of all iTunes automotive podcasts.
And that is a huge number.
That just blows my mind.
Yeah,
Don't you guys have anything better to do with your time? No.
For a show that is literally just twice a month. And I know everyone's asked, hey, you know, can you guys do some more shows? That's what Kevin and I are working on the videos.
Yeah.
We're kind of pushing the video thing because, again, it's cool. It's a way to blow off some steam. And, again, you know, not every video is going to be a Patreon exclusive. Again, most of them are the show recordings. And we're going to try and work more on the YouTube. This is going to be the year. 2020 is going to be the year. It is 2020, right? Okay, good.
It will be, yes.
It's going to be the year for us, again, to step up that bar higher. Everyone from Crawling for the Fallen, all the events that happen, people asking us questions. Thank you.
Yeah, we do appreciate each and every one of you.
Yes.
So, with that, Scott, please close the garage door.
Okay, hold on. What? Oh yeah, getting a nice cool front end. And by the way, for our northern listeners, I almost said viewers. Oh my goodness, the videos we did. Be very careful of that snowy weather.
Be careful. You know, the first couple of snows are always get that snow driving skill back into place in the mind, and pay attention and keep an eye out for the black ice and glare ice.
Yes. So I
have had my fair share of incidents with that.
So while we're going to talk about snow, be sure to lock those hubs.
Put it in 4-low if necessary.
And remember to take nothing but pictures, trash, and your memories when you leave the trail.
He's mixing up the order on you folks. But
darn it, I thought I had it. I really thought I had it.
Trash.
Patriots, I'm so sorry.
Trash is the punchline. But hey, you know, as long as they take it.
Yes.
As long as they take it. I don't care what order it's in.
On public land.
Well, yep. And even on private land, let's be honest, nobody who owns land and shares it with Jeepers really wants to go out there and see your discarded charcoal bag, old boxes of empty beer cans, busted up boats, you know.
I just remember that old sign from a public pool. We don't swim in your toilet, so please don't pee in our pool. I don't off-road in your trash can, so don't, whatever that works.
Dump your trash in my trail. My trail. So,
exactly.
Enough said. We've already subjected you to a very long 2-part podcast. Thanks for listening. If you haven't gone to sleep by now, but, you know, here, wake up. We're leaving. Bye.
All right, so let's show bye Patreons.
Bye Patreons.
You guys have a great time. We'll see you guys in the next one.